Hi everybody, here's Christian from Team Warcast. Welcome to our Stardew Valley Let's Play playthrough play. And this is the second day of summer. And I think we are going to try to go to the very happy. So this is a great moment to go to the mines. How are you doing? I hope you're enjoying the gift. Well, that's a beautiful sea urchin which I'm gonna immediately ship. So good. Alright, so I'm setting out my sprinkler system, making sure that everything is quite automated. One thing that is not automated is obviously my my animals. So something that bugged me recently to start another discussion. So last time, like one of the previous episodes, I was talking about how. Oh, okay. I guess there is no milk. One of the previous episodes, I was talking about how PR stuff and how. Can you please go? Patty, seriously, man, you're trolling me. How the RimWorld developer responded to criticism of his game, and and I said something like to the point of you should think about the end game of a discussion that you're participating in. I want to maybe clarify what I mean with that, because I think there's a general thought going on there that it's not just for designers. Oh, look, they upgraded everything. Oh, I can get the rabbits. And the thought here is the following. I think the way we conduct conversation, especially online, is wrong. It's just wrong. We are victims to some misconceptions about how humans conduct conversations. And what I mean with that is there's a really great podcast which I can recommend, which is there's also a website about this, which is You're Not That Smart. It's a psychology podcast documenting different biases and fallacies that people maintain. Not because they're stupid, but because they're humans, because that's what we think as humans. Quite a lot of those things is something that, everybody has, and you cannot get rid of this. And so there's like different fallacies that I think are important when you're making a conversation. One of them is, the backfire effect, where something that is very, very well documented with, like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. Oh, look, there's one corn there, where we think that when we confront people with evidence, when people have some deep beliefs and we confront them with evidence of the contrary, that people will get convinced. But it's actually not the case, right? Quite the opposite. Like if you have strong beliefs and you're confronted with contrary evidence, people tend to be actually reaffirmed in their beliefs, which sounds just insane. Like what that doesn't sound like. And most people, when they hear that, no, well, that was stupid people. I'm a rational person. I will actually look at evidence. But it's actually, that's actually something universal. Actually, I said a lot of actually in this word, in this sentence. So let me see. Can I make the tapper without iron? Oh, there's the brazier. Nice. Need coal for this. Where's the tapper? There we go. Oh yeah, I just need wood and copper bar. I will do that then. I need at least 2 tappers. So yeah, you think you will get convinced when your strong beliefs are challenged, but actually you're never convinced that when your strong beliefs are challenged, or rarely. And likewise, you think that you will convince others when you present them with evidence, but actually what happens is they just flip back and are even more against you. And the other problem is quite similar to this, which is I forgot how they called that effect. But essentially it was the problem was we think that given the same information that we have, that other rational people would have the same, would draw the same conclusions as we do. That we just need to present people with the right information and they will fall in line and will agree with us. And again, that's not the case. And that's, you know, that's also not the case where other people confront you with the information they have. You also won't get. I think that's a small tree here, right? Yeah. Okay. You also won't get convinced by them. But you always this comeback. Yeah. Maverick Entity summarizes quite nicely. The rationality goes out of the window once you get challenged. And I think this has less to do with oh, okay, so now I guess it got spit out. I think this has less to do with like convictions and stuff like that. It just really has to do with how you challenge people. Like the tone is important here. Because, you know, if that was true, then nobody would get ever convinced about anything. And so, like, my question is, and something that I'm trying to kind of like get behind is, like, how do people get convinced about something? Because clearly, like, people change their minds. So how does that happen? How do you bring about that kind of change? And of course, if there was a simple answer to this, then that person would have conquered the world, right? So there is no simple answers, obviously. But it has a lot to do, I think, with tone. With trust. Like, you are likely to, you maybe change your mind if said information comes from a person you trust. What a stranger on the internet who is being like abrasive, that's not somebody who will convince you. The desire to feel confident about one's ability to comprehend things as universal accepted ideas is perhaps the strongest mechanism of our thought process. Yeah. And so there was like this other podcast, I forgot which one, I think it was Philosophy Podcast, where there was this older person who said like, oh, as I'm getting older, I'm getting pleasure. Oh, Gus will be Gus. I think I have red mushroom. I'm gonna accept it. There is, okay, so I'm gonna go to the mines. So that person, that older guy said, I take pleasure from enjoying the power of saying to somebody else that they are right. To saying like, oh, I agree with you. Oh, or yo, oh, I convinced you, convinced me. Like to do the 360 and be like, or 180, I guess, and inside the conversation, giving up. And you would think that this is the worst idea ever. Like, why would you ever give up a conversation, right? Like, give up a discussion. But what he noticed is, and I think there's like some philosophers from olden days who also noticed this, that this is quite often actually more productive in the long term than always trying to argue your position. That doesn't mean that you should get convinced by others. That just means that once you admit that they might be right in some terms, quite often the other person also tries to seek the common ground. Kind of falls in line suddenly, and suddenly you are the tone of the conversation is very different. And then suddenly you can start talking about the things that you maybe agree on, and instead of talking about, you know, how the other person is wrong and stupid. And so so this is actually also something that struck me, where, especially in this one case of RimWorld, where it's like, it's kind of, it's interesting to think about what the long-term goal of your conversation or discussion will be. Like, will you actually convince the other person? Can you imagine a situation where the other person will say, oh yeah, you're right, I haven't thought about it this way? It's rarely the case, right? So once you start thinking about the end game, you can start maybe thinking about how to approach the other person. So the end game is actually more like something that will help you and maybe help other people as well. So applied to this situation, you know, there's somebody who criticizes your game, and by saying like, oh no, you're wrong and you're an idiot, you won't actually convince the other person. They clearly had like good reasons to criticize your game this way. So instead of saying like trying to argue against them and trying to argue them into liking your game, it makes maybe more sense to see it in a more productive sense and be like, oh, that's interesting, so that's how you see it. Can you explain it? You know, what would you suggest to improve in the future? Being more open perhaps about this, even though it seems like defeat at first, but that kind of attitude will bring the other person to your side. Suddenly it's no me against you, it's like us together trying to find a solution. And I thought that was a very interesting way to frame things, and that's something that's very rarely you see on the internet. Because the thing is, like, once you start arguing against a player person, once you get into like me against you situation, then you quite quickly get into this somebody's wrong on the internet thing, which I think everybody knows about. Where it's like suddenly you get like this very long discussions which are always, you know, simply going in circles. Nobody can convince the other person. And suddenly you're like, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're arguing with some rando guy on the internet. It's like, no, you don't understand. You know, there is no evidence that that there was thermite in the 9/11 rubbles or something like this. You know, it's like something very stupid. And also, like, this perspective, thinking about the end game, is also like one more fundamental question you should ask yourself, like, is this actually worth a conversation worth having? Like, is this a good use of my time, of everybody's time, if I start engaging this person? Like, can I just like let things be and let the person have the last word here? Is this the hill I'm gonna die on? You know? Alright, so I'm having problems with my energy. I'm gonna eat the cake. Only brought one cake. That was probably very short-sighted of me. Ah, nice. What are these? Like flying fish? What is this? Oh, nice. Probably one of the most interesting conversation, like exchanges in this term I've seen on the internet was between Anita Sarkeesian, from all people, and Derek Hu, who made Spelunky. So, as you've probably seen, Anita Sarkeesian made a video where she criticized Spelunky for the damsels that they have in the game, which seems like a bit unfair because there's like damsels that are male and female, and also a dog damsel. So actually, the developer of Spelunky made sure that, you know, it's not just women that you're rescuing; that you have like different types of damsels. And Anita made the argument that, while it's nice that there's different types of damsels, it's different for men than it is for women. Like, if you show a damsel that is male, that doesn't actually reference any negative stereotype, because there is no such thing as male damsels, or they're very rare. But if you make a damsel that is a woman, that is obviously bad, because there's a lot of situations where that is the case. So you cannot actually just switch genders and call it a day. You have to address it somewhere differently. And everybody was like, went to the internet, like, what, Derek? She's shitting on your game. You know, she's being like, she's trying to insult you. And Derek Hu said to her, said like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting argument. I haven't seen it this way. Thank you. Just like that. He just actually did the thing I was talking about. And so everybody's like, what? Are you crazy? She was like shitting on your game, and you just fall in like that? Or you're sacrificing your Your artistic integrity, what, are you stupid? Like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, I don't want to be an asshole. I didn't intend to be an asshole, right? So, so if this is not something I wanted, there is no reason to want to be an asshole just out of spite. Like, she understood that she made the argument that there's something that would seem as he was an asshole in this game, and then so like doubling down on that is actually like proves her right in this case. And so it's more productive in this case to be like, okay, yeah, that's interesting, and just listen to her argument than to try to be like argue against her and make her an enemy. And, you know, create like a whole internet shitstorm. And that was, and immediately she answered already immediately, oh yeah, sorry, maybe we've been a bit too harsh. We love that game here, you know, and then everything was fine. And everybody went home and felt good about this exchange. And I think this is kind of something that we should really practice more. There's discussion about artillery for gunlens. People are shitting on the I guess on the artillery skill because there's no skill involved. I think the thought process going on in their mind that makes them argue against criticisms, the fear that they admit some criticisms are valid. They may feel that their work is not validated or that their own values are considered beneath any critics. Yeah, I think this has. I mean, obviously, again. I think like most people are fine if the criticism is something that they themselves are also not happy with. So if somebody says, you know, if you're an artist and somebody says like, man, you know, the proportions are not quite right, and you go like, yeah, you gotta work on that, you know. But if the criticism is about something that you don't feel, that you haven't thought about, or that you haven't actually, do not have desires to improving in, I think that feels the worst, because it feels like you're getting, like you put so much work into something and it doesn't get recognized. Yeah, I'm gonna ship that. So again, like I think in RimWorld, you know, somebody who invested a lot of things and balanced the systems, were working, you know, day and night to balance the game and everything, and make the systems work and mesh with each other, and actually made efforts to make the gender roles in that game kind of like more open and less prescribed, and then getting shit on about the gender roles kind of feels like a betrayal. Like an injustice. And like you cannot actually do the right thing. Like you try to do something better and still being criticized, and so you feel like, ugh, why do you even bother? They will always find something bad. And the same thing with the Derek Q example, where they try to make it to do something to improve this one aspect, but they failed, and then you would think that they would be against it. But again, thinking about more positive outcome, thinking about how you can steer the conversation in a way that everybody involved in the conversation feels like they actually benefited from the conversation, and not going for these kind of like zero-sum games where if I win, that means that you have to lose. I think it's very important. Alright guys, so this was going to be the second game of summer. I'm going to move on to the third game of summer. Seems like there is no checkpoints in the desert thing. I saw some of the holes, so I heard about that if you fall into a hole, you get a couple of levels further down. So I think I might be going for those holes now. See you next time around, guys. Bye bye.